Hi, it's Becky and today I'm going to be doing the Booktube Newbie tag. I know I've had this channel for quite a while, but I've never done this tag because I've always been too inconsistent with posting. But I've been posting for about a month now during lockdown. I actually feel pretty good about myself. I feel pretty good that I'm going to be doing this for longer than the last few times I've started this channel. And so I wanted to introduce myself fully about why I wanted to start this channel and who I am and what kind of reader I am. So we're going to go straight into it, and the first question is why I wanted to start this channel. And like I said before, I've started and stopped this channel multiple times, so I'm going to talk about why I started particularly this time. I've always loved reading since I was a very little girl, and I've always loved talking about books, but I've never really had in real life friends who like books as much as me. Or I have, and we've kind of grown apart as we've grown older, and most of my friends I have now do read, but maybe don't read as much as me, or don't read as much fantasy as me. And so I started blogging a few years ago, and I started a Bookstagram a few years ago, and I've been talking about books in multiple different places on the web, and Booktube is like the next logical step for me, especially with the fact that so many of my friends are also in this book community, whether they are book bloggers or bookstagrammers or booktubers as well. And it's really fun to kind of get on board and to meet new friends and to talk to people who love books as much as you do. Just it's nice to have a space to do that. So this year particularly, I've started to gain some consistency with my blog and Bookstagram, and although I wouldn't go look at my Bookstagram right now, I've been gaining consistency with my blog and the content on that. A lot of the reviews specifically I do on my blog, I also upload to YouTube as well. So I thought that now, whilst we're in lockdown, whilst I'm always at home and I really need to take my mind off work sometimes, I thought it was the best time for me to start. The second question is, what are some fun and unique things I can bring to Booktube? And that is like the hardest question, because I don't think I bring anything unique to the table here. So many other people probably do exactly what I'm doing right now, except they've been doing it longer, or they have something interesting about them that makes them different. And I don't think I have that, but what I do have is that I've been making content for years on my blog, and somehow people have been liking it, and somehow people keep coming back to read it. So hopefully that's going to be the same on here. I really enjoy creative ideas. I like thinking of new ways to engage people and to talk to people and to make discussions fun. So hopefully I can do that on here as well. And another thing is that I don't just do book stuff. My blog hasn't always been book focused, and I don't think this Booktube will be either. I've already posted a few videos which aren't always book related, and I think that's probably going to be a continuing thing because I do have other hobbies as well. I love gaming and beauty products, and I love all kinds of like going out for food and all these kinds of things, which I'm sure I can focus on in vlogs as well. So hopefully you guys like all those things too, and if not, you can just skip those bits. The third question is, what are you most excited about for this new channel? And that is mainly just creating videos. The video format, as a general rule, is very different to the written format and just taking photos for Bookstagram. And I mean, I've already started doing it a little bit, like I've done reading vlogs, which is never something I would do on Instagram or on my website. And it just allows you to be a little bit more free and a little bit more personal, I think. To cut a longer story short, I'm just really excited about creating content in a completely different format that I'm not used to. The next question is, why do you love reading? And I find this question so hard to answer because I've literally been reading my whole life. Ever since I knew how to read, my parents were giving me books. So I think I love reading mostly because I get to explore so many different worlds, I get to learn new things, and it is a little bit of an escapism. Whenever I'm feeling down or low, or I just want to stay in bed all day, I'm staying in bed reading a book, or I'm on the sofa reading a book, and I'm joining characters that I've known and loved. I often reread books that I love, like Lord of the Rings, and you know, it just helps me a little bit. Another thing is that I learn so much from books. I've always been someone who can read information and take it in. That's just my learning style, and it's something that helped me through uni. But even when it's fiction books, there's always like a moral to learn, or there's something to learn about different cultures or different myths and legends from different places around the world. Or there's different, even in fiction books, there's always a story to take from that and to apply to your real life. So I really just enjoy all the ways you can learn from books and how it can help you in your real life. The next question is, what book or series got you into reading? And this is, like I said before, I've been reading since I could read myself. So I don't even know what I mean, I definitely can't remember. I was way too young to remember what book got me into reading. But I know for a fact I had like the Winnie the Pooh collection, I had Beatrix Potter, I even had like a collection of Barbie books that were for kids. I guess those are the books that got me into reading because I remembered that we had them, and that's like my earliest memory of what books I was reading. But then also, I guess you could say what books got me into reading kind of bigger fantasy books. And that would be things like I read Trudy Caravan, I read The Hobbit when I was like 10, and I just adored it, and I just hunted out as much fantasy as I could, which is how I've acquired all of these. So I guess those books as well got me into reading fantasy in particular. But yeah, that's a really hard question for me because I don't really know what got me into reading. I definitely think it was a family focus, like my parents, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents would all buy me books as gifts. I had so many books ever since I was little. So yeah, it's a hard question. So the next question is a tricky one. It's, what questions would you ask your favourite booktuber? And this is a hard question for me because I'm such a researcher that before I've done this, and I've done this I think it's 3 or 4 times now, I have researched all the questions I would ask about how to do this. And so that really leaves me very little questions to ask people. I guess the main one is, how do you film yourself when you're having a bad day? Because there's some days, especially because I mostly film on the weekends because I have a full-time job and lighting is bad in the evenings. But there's some days where I don't want to film myself. I don't want to take photos of my face. I don't even want to do my makeup on some weekends. So how do you actually get up, and how do you force yourself to create content when you just don't want to do it, but you know you probably should be? I don't know if that's the right question to be asking, but especially for reading vlogs and stuff, there's some days, especially recently when I've been ill, I don't want to film myself. I don't want to have to force myself to feel like I'm being productive when I feel like I'm not productive at all. I don't know if that's really understandable, but hopefully someone who has the same problem can answer me. The next question's actually really similar to what I just said, I guess. What's the hardest challenge that you think you're going to have to overcome with this booktube channel? And that is probably forcing myself to film and be consistent with filming in order to have content, because some days I just don't want to do it. Videoing myself at all and having to edit my voice and my face really is out of my comfort zone anyway, but there's some days where I don't want to do any of that at all. And so yeah, definitely like having the confidence and the consistency to film myself, and I'm always good with ideas, it's just the actual execution of them which is the problem. And also that probably goes hand in hand with the consistency thing. I have started this so many times that I don't know whether I'm going to be consistent this time. I've been consistent so far, but will I be consistent next week? I don't know. So that's probably going to be a challenge as well, like keeping at it and not just giving up and then going back to blogging full time and then starting this again in like a year's time like I've done before. So the next question is a bit easier because I've already answered it. It's, when did you start reading? And like I said, it was when I was a child. I've read my entire life. I know loads of people who've started maybe in teenagers or they've dropped off in their teenagers. I only really dropped off reading during my A-levels and like a bit of university, and that's literally because I was spending so much of my time outside of school and outside of uni hours studying and reading books for those subjects that I didn't have time to read other books. So I was still reading technically, just not books that I wanted to, which is awkward. But yeah, I've always been reading, apart from maybe like 5 years, which I still read because I was blogging at university, but I didn't read as much. The next question is, where do you read? And it's literally anywhere and everywhere. Obviously when I'm in my flat, my favourite place to read is either on my sofa or in bed, mainly because it's the only place I can read. I don't have many places to go in my studio flat, but I do take my Kindle pretty much everywhere I go. I take it to work every day, despite the fact that I don't really read at work, but I do read on the train when we were going into the office, and I would read if I go to a coffee shop. I'll just sit and read and have my coffee, or say like I have a work meeting in London, I would read before and after that if I have time. So I really would read anywhere and everywhere as long as I have a book with me. And the final question is, what books do you like to read? So I don't think it's going to be a surprise when I say I really love reading fantasy books, but I do read pretty much everything I can get my hands on. I've done that since I was very little. I definitely think since I've grown up and I've started buying my own books, I've been a lot more selective with the books I read, and more often than not I will be picking fantasy books because those are the books I prefer mostly, but sometimes I am in the mood for a thriller or a sci-fi or a contemporary or even like a non-fiction book. I have quite a few as well. So yeah, I do read nearly, if you gave me a book, I would probably get around to reading it at some point. So thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully this has been a good introduction to me as a person, and hopefully you will continue to watch the channel. Big thank you for anyone who's watched this far as well, and I will see you again soon.